Hey everyone, let's talk about our latest units on the global server. It's the Chrono Cross collaboration kit, Lynx and Serge. Now before we get into the nitty-gritty of these units, I wanted to point out that if I sound differently, yes, I hope I fixed the audio issues that I had on pretty much all of my previous videos. But there's a caveat to this. I think the issue was that I am using RTX voice to cancel the noise, the background noise basically. So I deactivated RTX voice, which means that in return you will basically hear every little detail of the background surroundings of mine. So when a car passes by my apartment, you will most certainly hear it. I close the windows, I close the door. Highly likely you will still hear it. So I apologize for that, but let me know whichever is less of an issue to you guys, whether you find it acceptable to have some minor, hopefully minor background noises compared to the voice crackling, voice stutters on previous videos. I'm up for I'd like to know your opinion, whichever you prefer. If you say the previous one was better with no background noise, I'll go back to that. I know how that works. But if you prefer this with some minor background noise, I'll leave it like that. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the review. I will not specifically talk about every unit in detail. Their kits are very similar. And let's start. So I just noticed I forgot the animation or the unit animations on the starting sheet, but it's fine. We do have the sprites on all subsequent ones. So let's talk about kit. Kit is your firebreaker unit, SLB. All three of them are SLB. And what I did was pretty much pick out the most interesting abilities on the left hand side, which is You'll Kiss the Moons in Kit's case. It is her own 30% fire amp. Unlike Serge and Lynx, she does not have a 150% amp, nor does she have a 50%, 45%, or even 100% amp, which I find very disappointing, so to say. Because I believe all the upcoming breaker units from JP have 150 or at least 100, not quite sure though. So I would have liked if she followed the 150 trend here, which is being set by these units, because every unit going forward is going to have 150% amps, and that hopefully includes Clash units as well. Otherwise, outside Clash of Wills, these units will fall behind rather quickly, just like Lilith, for example. So what the ability You'll Kiss the Moon also does is 250% attack and magic buff, which is very low for a 7.5 star unit, and 200% LB buff, as well as storing magic for 300% right away, so no magic boost plus required, which I find very nice. Also though, reduces SPR by 50% for one turn. No, yeah, it does permanently, even probably. I haven't checked because I don't have Kid. But yeah, the other ability which I find really disappointing is, would you just shut up and get on with it, is her 2-stack Mirage, which is the good part of it. But the disappointing part is the 135% Stone and Insect Claw. Well, those are certainly very rare race types. We have units that do far much better than this, and those are even units that do very many things, such as Chizuru, who does huge damage, has a huge party kit, and Kid does not have anything like that. She doesn't even have a Brave Shift for that matter. So 135 doesn't cut it 2 years into, or more than 2 years into, the Neovision era, but I guess that's what you get for a 7.5 star unit. And then there's DEF, Def Chrono Cross, which is 75% mitigation, single turn, has only a 1 turn cooldown, so technically speaking you can spam this every single turn. Enables quadruple cast, replenishes some mana, and replenishes some LB gauge. All three of these units, Serge, Lynx, and Kit, have the same ability. It always does exactly the same thing, which is the reason I brought it up on Kit, but I won't bring it up on the other two. The SLB offers, the LB doesn't matter, the LB is just a weaker form of the SLB. So Salamander is your 30% Dagger Emperor, which was upgraded from the JP version, as well as an 87 defense break and 89% spirit break, while also doing a very strong 160% fire imperil on the boss. She does have a 150% fire imperil on her kit. It's on a cooldown. It has a 3-turn cooldown if I'm not totally mistaken. So there is still that. It's a good one. She also has a fire amp field with ice resistance. It's both 2-in-1 basically. So 30% fire amp field for the enemy with that 30% ice resistance, or 50%. I'm not quite sure right now. And the same applies to your party side. So she has that too, just saying it. So that's really cool. But I do prefer imperil fields on enemy sides, because I don't want to amp their fire damage or even ice resistance, which is a kind of but we do have Tsukiko to handle this. And lastly, 250x fire magic damage. Now please keep in mind, this is strict fire magic. It cannot be imbued, so you are hard locked to fire, which is very unfortunate, because the good units, the good mage units, should have physical damage, physically typed magic damage that you can imbue. Meaning you can already tell her worth in the current meta is rather low, because she is a hard-locked unit. Next up, Lynx. Lynx is a dark magic SLB finisher, and he has an entirely new ability, global upgrade Be Praised, which is a fill LB. Lynx Serge has the same thing for light. So what this does is basically it A, fills the entire LB gauge, and B, fill or is a 150% dark physical and magical amplification. It is 2 turns only, be wary of that, which Gumi did okay. I would have preferred 5 turns for it to be a true global upgrade, but I guess they just copy pasted this ability from units that are coming, such as Edgar, such as Sabin. All those units have 150% amps, and it's basically the same ability. They just give it or slapped it onto this, because I believe the other units, Edgar, Sabin, etc., they have the 150% amps on another ability. Still fine. I like it. 150% amp. It really matters for Serge and Lynx. Now, the other ability, I still went with this because it is basically the same. So Lynx has the same ability as does Kit, with exactly the same thing. It's just a dark amp, a weaker dark amp instead of fire. Same applies to Serge, by the way. He has light. Now, Lynx has that ethereal cats ability, which Kit also does have, but different naming. Serge has that same thing with, again, different naming. And this one is a 1400 dark magic chain, or 750% spirit ignore, but that means it's just 1500 X modifier. It is a 150 human killer for 5 turns to all allies, which is cool. And physical magical, and it's the aforementioned amplification and resistance field. So in Lynx's case, it is a 30% dark damage physical magical amplification, 5 turns, and it also boosts light resistance for both sides of the playing field. So you technically want this on your own party side, but you don't really want this on the enemy side, especially when you're hitting enemies with light instead of dark. But in case you're just going for dark damage, yeah, it's still fine, I guess. But still, dark imperil fields are better. And then the SLB, which is the only interesting part. The LB, again, is just an inferior version to it. So it's a 30% spear imperil. Again, global upgrade Be Praised. 135 dark resistance imperil, and a 350 axe modifier. Now, you all might have noticed in the King Mark shop, there are several orbs. These orbs are pretty much reminiscent of the Chrono Cross game, which I do advise you guys to play. It's an amazing game. Not so much the demastered version that released a couple of months ago, but the original version. It's fantastic. You should all play it. But if you played the game, you are gaining a few orbs, white orbs, dark orbs, etc. And use those for special effects on the units. And the same applies to FFBE. So those orbs, they serve as materials and they grant you specific abilities. One of those, and it's the only really good material, to be fair, is a 30x LB modifier, which applies to Chrono Cross units only. So if you look at my sheet, you will have Lynx and Serge at 400x, meaning 350x base modifier, dark magic damage by the way. Adding on top of that is the 30x modifier from that ability. And adding on top of that is the 20x LB modifier provided by Sylvie. And thereby you gain or have a 400x modifier in total. So that's all pretty much for Lynx. He has a few more abilities that don't do really much. He has physically typed magic damage, no element attached. You can imbue that. It's decent. It's a nice chain, bolting strike chain, but it's not worth talking about honestly, because all the good stuff is and will forever be his dark magic LB finisher or SLB finisher. Same applies to Serge, basically the same thing. The one thing I do like about Serge is Chrono Cross. It's decrease cooldown ability timer by 1 turn for 1 ally. Cool stuff, I like it. Sadly though, it's on a 6-turn cooldown, so you can only effectively reduce a cooldown once per usual fight, or in clash fights twice, but you probably will never end up using Serge in clash. So as you can see, he has that 150% light amp 2, which is very cool, and Luminaire is his version of the dark field. This one is light, 30% amp both sides, as well as 50% dark resistance field for both sides as well. It's a 2-in-1. Sadly has no effect on the game, so there is no visual effect to it. It's just at the top you read field effect, and that's it. Rather boring. I would have liked if they made a specific Chrono Cross-esque image for that appears on the screen, but they didn't, which is disappointing. Now Serge 2 has a Spear Imperil, 30%, has a 135 Light Imperil, which I do appreciate very much because we are severely lacking Light Imperil units. So finally Serge is a good one, but technically speaking we do have Kuja who does the job fairly well. But outside of Kuja, Serge also does the trick. Now Heey 2 is a 350x SLB light magic damage dealer, whereas Lynx was a 350x dark, so they are virtually the same units. If you look at the kits in total, Lynx and Serge are identical units, just element swap. And if you played the game, you too would be rather mad about this, because technically speaking, Lynx would have been a perfect example of a brave shift for Serge. Why they did not make Serge a brave shift unit, I don't know. They could have literally slapped Lynx's entire kit onto the brave shift of Serge and it would have been fine, but they didn't. And what's rather unique about Serge is that he has a minor heal, 2500 HP with 18x modifier to all allies for whatever reason, because your party will most likely never take damage in dark visions environments. But it's nice to have, I guess. Now let's check out TMR's, STMR's vision cards of the lot. So we're starting off with Kid, Trustmaster, Cloves, 41 attack, 15 defense, 55 magic, 21 spirit. It's an evasion piece, 20% physical evasion, 10% passive provoke, which is, yeah, it sounds good, but we do have plenty of better options by this point, so this one is rather forgettable. The Super Trustmaster Global Upgrade 2, instead of being a one-handed dagger, it's a two-handed dagger with 1.45 to 1.65x variance, 210 magic, which I find disappointing. They should have upped the magic value to 220, being thus on par with every other mage piece or attacker piece. They didn't, rather disappointing. However, or that said, I should say, it is more or less another evasion piece, 20% physical evasion, 20% passive provoke. I find passive provoke on any item these days a waste, because in any case, if you want a unit to be passive provoking, you do use the diadem from Clash of Wills, which is 100% passive provoke right away. The vision card, 100 base magic, 50 magic, no conditions, 100% Machina Killer, physical magic, which is nice, and breaker only units gain 100% LB damage. With that said, while it sounds decent, it is absolutely not, has no static magic, has low base magic, so all around the item selection of kit is very, very bad. Not, let's say it's even garbage. So none of it is actually good and massively power crept by other items that have been around for months, if not years. Even by 7-star items, so to say. Let's check out Lynx, because Lynx is more interesting. So he too has a close TMR piece, 48 attack, 32 defense, 55 magic, and 48 spirit, with 50% human killer. It's nice, but kind of whatever. It's all about the Super Trustmaster, which is a hat. And that one has 48 attack, 38 defense, 80 magic, 45 spirit, and here's the kicker, it also has 50% LB damage. So this piece is basically one of the best, if not the best, mage hat piece. The only really good upgrade is the Clash Helmet, more stats, for example, and for 2 races in particular, Aquatic and Beasts, Return Fina's STMR is also slightly better, but for all 10 other races in the game, the Super Trustmaster from Lynx will outperform the other 2. Now obviously the Clash Helm will always be better if you can equip it on said unit. So in that case, yeah, there is one strictly better choice, but the Super Trustmaster is still highly valuable. It makes gearing a lot less painful, especially on units such as Beach Blaster Olive, for example. So very good piece. I was lucky enough to get a couple links. I think I got 2, so I got definitely 2 STMRs of his, which I'm very happy about. It's a good piece. It's pretty much the Graph STMR for mages, and I used to use Graph STMR rather frequently. It's still a good piece, but it has been massively power crept by higher attack pieces. So the attacker role is rather saturated with good head slots. The mage units are still lacking behind, but this is a very good piece to have. The vision card sports 120 base magic, still on the lower side of things, 50% magic passive, 50% human killer, and 50% LB damage for mage units only. Which again, it does read okay, but with it having 0 static magic and still low base magic at level 10, it's a very bad card in general, and while the art is fantastic, the usefulness is very, very low. So all around, it's all about the headpiece, which is amazing. It's fantastic. And that's pretty much all there is about Lynx's item selection. Let's get to Serge. He too sports a headpiece. This one is his Trustmaster though, with 48 attack and 52 magic, as well as 50% demon killer, so it's on the lower side of things. It's a good headpiece nonetheless, I say weak in the verdict, but it has its usages, because demon killer hats aren't that common, so there might be some cases where it might be applicable, but in any case, I feel like the difference between a, say, 90, is it 90? I believe the Clash Helmet is 90 magic. It's just too big of a difference in terms of magic, and I feel like the killer isn't worth the huge magic loss you have on the headpiece. So that's why I call it weak. The Super Trustmaster is a 200 spear with standard spear variance, 1.25 to 1.75x variance, 210 attack, 220 magic, which is fairly standard, nothing too amazing. But what's good about this weapon is that it has 50% LB damage, no strings attached, as well as 50% double hand magic and 50% Omni Killer for Serge only. So let's ignore the autocast, which is a minor weak heal for at the start of the battle, upon revival, and when brave shifting, even though he has no brave shift, funnily. But I don't know, does using the SLB count as a brave shift? Because it's a limit shift, so I don't know how that behaves, to be fair. But yeah, it is an ability auto-casted to one ally. I guess it's on the kit or on the weapon. Its usefulness is highly debatable. But still, 50% LBD damage and 50% true double hand magic is cool. Especially when you consider that a unit such as Dark Rain on our global side of things, for the time being without the true dual wield upgrades, there is some merit to go through double hand, and this would technically help with it because it has all the things he needs. It's a decent piece, but it's mainly for Serge only. Serge's vision card, 110 base attack and magic alike, 25% LB damage, 75% demon killer, and he has, for mage units only, 300 static magic. Now this one, arguably, I can't speak English today. It's technically speaking the best of the 3 cards, but it's still super weak compared to all the other great mage cards we've gotten in the past few weeks, if not months. Dark Rain's vision card still massively overshadows this card, and pretty much all the other cards, Dazzling Demoness, the last one on the Tsukiko banner was also a lot better. The hard-hitting Sage card, which we'll be talking about in a minute, is also better than this. So there isn't really much going on for this card, to be honest. So yeah, he too has a rather weak item selection, but I wouldn't count away or talk trash about the Super Trustmaster. It does have its merits. Now let's check out the hard-hitting Sage Vision card. It's the latest one. It's Sakura. It's funny because technically speaking, Sakura is known for her lightning damage, but the card is a lightning rolling amp. So it's 125 base magic, 500 static magic, 100 true double hand magic on the first passive. The second passive is 10 turn cooldown, which I find highly weird, but okay. And it's a rolling amp with 100% light amp, although I haven't checked, I just assumed it was. I should really have double checked this one, so oh well, so be it. I know for a fact it's 100% light amp, I checked that one, but I'm not quite sure whether it's 50, 75 to 100, so cut me some slack if it's not. And FFBE units only gain 100% human and machina killer, which is interesting, as this is the typings for the next Clash boss, but this is on the Chrono Cross banner 3 weeks in advance. So what is coming for the Clash boss? Are they planning on another vision card for that, or what is up with that? And it also sports 50% LB damage. So yeah, I mean, it has decent stats and good passives, but I will just say it right now, the light amp is fantastic, it's good, but 100% amps will start to be outdated starting this week, because every unit, like I mentioned earlier, is getting 150% amps from now on. So 100% amps, especially those on Sylvie, will start to feel outdated as time progresses. This doesn't mean that right now, right from this moment on, the Sylvie amps are worthless. Far from it. They are still super strong. But as soon as we have a decent amount of units that sport 150% amps on the same element, so to say too, Sylvie's amps just won't matter anymore. And in that case, this 100% single target caster only light amp also won't matter anymore. And the units that can actually make use of this card are very limited as well. Right off the top of my head, which is why I wrote these units down that can make use of it, are Kuja, who does not benefit from the FFBE passive in that case, and Tsukiko for light chaining. Even though this means that Tsukiko has a harder time gearing for Esper or evocation damage, one of the two is going to be harder, but it's still the best card for her, technically speaking, if you can cap the other things, just because the light amp is so strong and it makes a huge difference compared to her 30% self amp or a 45% amp from other sources. But then again, you could always bring a unit such as Dagger along the way with her 50% amp to light field, which makes it a total of 80% light amp, which is only about 13% weaker than this card, but still, it's a nice piece for Tsukiko in general as well, if you can fit in all the rest. And with all that said, and with all that in mind especially, the card can be seen as an easy skip, because it really only amplifies Kuja's and Tsukiko's damage. And yeah, the concept would have been neat if this was a 100% AoE amp. And to be fair, this card only really matters if you are going for top 10 or top 50 in Dark Visions. And I would argue not even many people in the top 50 will use this card. I would rather say it's strictly a top 10 card. If you really want to push for the top 10 rating in Dark Vision, you do want this card. But if you're not gunning for that, don't bother. Save a Lapis for Nier. That's probably the best usage of this card, just being skippable in that case. Now let's check out the damage calculations. So if you checked out my sheet in the last couple of days, you will have noticed that I made a few changes. So my Clash of Wills sheet is now sporting every unit at 100 level at 130, and every unit calculated uses one Ruler's piece and one Magister's piece. Now all the units going forward, I will calculate the same way. With one exception, the Dark Vision sheet will remain at level 120 until the end of November, when I do have 2 weeks off on vacation. That's when I will update my Dark Vision sheet. As well, for level 130, I will update all the builds to sport 2 Clash pieces and level 130. And yeah, that's going to be the main headline. But all units going forward, meaning next week, potentially, I don't know, it's either Edgar's banner or it's either Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 4. Either one, whichever it is, I will start using 2 Clash pieces and level 130, so you hopefully won't be confused with that too much. So I don't have to redo everything later. Okay, so let's check out the builds. This is Kid's build. As you can see, Lynx's head already showing up. And also, because I got the question last time on someone else's banner, I don't know, I believe it was Tsukiko or someone else. Yes, I am using the focus magic stuff, that's why it reads 700% magic up. This is Lynx's stuff, and this is Serge. The only difference between Lynx and Serge, both units are identical. They have the identical stats, identical killers, etc., kits, etc., etc. So technically speaking, they should do identical damage, but due to weapon difference, Serge is using his own STMR, Lynx is using the stronger sword. It doesn't perfectly work out in terms of damage calculation, but it's still fine. And this is the result. So Lynx and Serge should be viewed as identical. The difference is rather small anyway. It's just that the weapon does quite a difference here. As you can see, almost 100 million in difference. Lynx is 84% of Van Harmer's damage or 94% of Agobus's damage. Serge, pretty much the same thing, 81% of Van Harmer because he's a little bit lower, and 91% of Agobus's damage. Yes, I rounded up. But like I mentioned, Serge and Lynx should be viewed as 100% of each other, identical units. The difference is explained, like I mentioned, in the weapon choice here. Kid, on the other hand, is at the bottom of this row. Now, I saw on the Discord that some people assumed I wasn't bothering with Lilith's dark visions damage. That is wrong. Lilith is on the outdated tab of my spreadsheet. Make sure to check it out, because every unit that is below Kid, formerly below Esther, is now on the outdated tab. The outdated tab has every unit that deals strictly below 1.5 billion damage. Now Kid is 1.519 billion damage, meaning she stays on the main sheet, but Lilith, being a lot lower than this, ended up on the outdated tab. So yes, I did calculate Lilith for dark vision. She's just in another tab because she's outdated for that kind of content. Kid is on Esther level basically. Esther is a rather old unit at this point, so her being a breaker and rather close. Also keep in mind, focus magic is one hell of a drug, and it does really help amplify damage of mage units. So Kid is rather comparable to her, and is 42% of Van Harmer's damage and 47% of Golbas's damage. Not too shabby for a breaker unit, honestly, but still rather on the low side. And now let's get to the verdict. Now, Kid is still a 2 out of 10. Now let me explain what a 2 out of 10 means. A 2 out of 10 does not N-O-T, mean that a unit is bad. It just means that a unit is super niche. The closer you are to a 1 out of 10, the more niche you are. Now Kid's niche obviously is Fire Imperil and that fire field. You will never use Kid, especially due to her hard-locked fire magic SLB, in a fight that is, say, weak to water, light, or dark, for example. You will never bring her. Why would you? You're just doing no damage. There is plenty better units that do dark imperil stuff, dark damage, and have potentially better breaks. And that's why she's a 2 out of 10. Strictly niche unit. And on the flip side, a unit that is, for example, an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, those units, such as Sylvie, for example, who is a perfect 10 out of 10, gets used every single time on every single comp because she's so role compressive, she's so slot efficient, and does plenty of things very well. And that is a 10 out of 10. That's how the ratings work. And everything else is pretty much in the middle. So every unit is either, for the time being, because that's how Alum works, they only do niche units that fit a certain role. And that's why most SLB units, or most Alum units I should say, end up being at the lower side of things in a niche role. So 1 to 3, whereas global units, usually outside of global JP units, aka SLB units, they tend to be on the higher side of things, 7 to 10, because they are role compressive in lots of potential ways. Take Chizuru, for example. And but there are good units outside of these two extremes, and one of those is Cecil, the Red Wings of Cecil, who is a 6 out of 10 on my sheet. He's a still superb unit, but he doesn't quite fit into Clash of Wills, but still a very good all-around unit, and that's why he's a 6. A 6 is a very well-rounded unit with no clear disadvantages, but also no clear advantages, and that's a good unit. It's just 6. It has decent usages all around. So that's how the rating system works. And I hope I was able to clear out some confusion, because I saw people getting mad in my comments on the Discord server that I rated Lilith only a 3 out of 10 in Clash, because yeah, she is a niche unit and she's not that good at all. By the way, check out Lilith's damage for the Machina Human Killer, Machina Human race boss, because Lilith's damage already is falling behind. Now back to Kid. So the good side of things for Kid, the Imperil, and she does have a strong killer type selection. I believe it's 6 killer types innate at 200%, which is really, really nice. And she does gear easily for all races. Also, the 30% fire field amp is cool. I like it, but I don't feel like it's worth giving her +1 for that. The bad side of things, subpar brakes, undoubtedly so. Low damage, trash tier, item selection, weak party support, and yeah, I don't count that field and the low killer and the 2 stacks Mirage as good party support. I'm sorry to say that is not good party support. She has too many kit redundancies because she has 2 abilities that basically deal the same thing. It's Pilfer, which is steal, and the other one is the cooldown, which both do the same thing basically, and it's just redundant. It could just do one ability instead. And then there's 2 minor things, such as her being hard-locked fire and having a low base stat of 432 magic, which is funnily because it's straight 432, so that's funny. But yeah, Kid, all in all, is your average run-of-the-mill breaker unit with very, very few Chrono Cross specific features. And because fire isn't meta at all right now, it just has no place in a meta, and it probably won't have any place for a very long time, so she just doesn't matter at all, sadly. What would have made her good, it would have been a 90% spirit break and or defense break, but because she doesn't have it, she's an easy skip. Now let's check out Lynx. He too is only a 2 out of 10, and this one should be straightforward because his niche is absolutely just damage. It's just dark damage. And he does have a few upsides. He has good damage. He also has a strong killer type selection, which makes him rather easy to gear. And his Super Trust Master is very, very good. And that is technically what saves him from being a 1 out of 10. Because technically speaking, while Kid has that upside of having a little bit more usability outside the fire stuff for being a breaker with half decent damage, Lynx really is just a dark damage unit. And just like units such as Summer Sniper Physalis, who is also a 1 out of 10, or Van Harma, who is also a 1 out of 10, so should have Lynx been a 1 out of 10, because the only niche he has is dark magic damage. He does that very well, obviously, but like I just explained, having that one single niche with no other saving grace capabilities doesn't mean you are a unit that is coming along for every single fight. What will you do with Lynx on a fight that is light weak? You cannot use him. His chaining ability? Nah, that's trash. You don't want to use that. We have plenty better units for light damage. You're not gonna use Lynx for that. You're gonna use him for dark, and dark isn't that high in demand right now. So he has no party support, or no meaningful party support, because he has 150% human killer, for example, but yeah. Still nothing meaningful, no resistance buffs, no mirage buffs, no damage mitigation buffs, such as Chizuru, for example. So he's missing a lot of things compared to actually good mages. Also entirely dependent on outside buffs, because he only has 250% buffs, either from the SLB activation or his cooldown. Same applies to LB buffs, so entirely dependent on others to do the job for him. Many redundancies, that is very obvious. Trashy vision card in TMR, low base stats, and for this one I did deduct a point, because a 480 magic base stat at EX plus 3 is just not cutting it these days. Most units, especially damage units such as Elazul, Pearl, Lilith, for example, too, even though she's a dual unit with tank and attack, Chizuru, etc., all those units have 500 plus main stat. Lynx doesn't. The same applies to Serge, by the way. So that's why I deducted a point. That's just not cutting it anymore. And then the same, and then the aforementioned hard lock to dark. I didn't deduct a point ever for this, and I will never deduct a point for this. It's just the nature of the game, and especially going forward with leader skills, where being hard lock to dark isn't such a bad thing anymore when you strictly want to use a dark team. So this was a 200 IQ big brain galaxy brain move from me a few months ago to never deduct a point for this, so it's okay, but for the time being it's not good. And lastly, I do want to mention that Lynx and Serge are lazy kit design because they are identical units with element swap. I didn't deduct a point for this though, as I feel like, yeah, I dislike it, but it's whatever. So Lynx, all in all, the final verdict is that he is your typical SLB unit with one single niche, that being damage, dark damage to be precise. And yeah, we all know that dark damage is just one of the worst elements to this date. We used it, it's kind of funny. Dark wasn't even a good element in this Clash of Worlds, which is mainly weak to dark. Most people used light, and I find that very, very amusing, and that pretty much sums up the state of dark element. It's just bad. Will it make a comeback with Deosis in 4 to 5 months? Probably not, but we'll see about that because it's hard to predict what Global is going to do with leader skills. But by that time, I highly doubt Lynx will matter. So yeah, he is an easy skip, but the Super Trust Master is actually very good, so maybe some tickets, hoping to get him. I don't know, you decide. And lastly, we have Serge. I am going to decide to not repeat what I just said, because everything that I said about Lynx is exactly the same for Serge. So just imagine I said everything just now, but coin it for light and it will be the same. So Serge, he is technically super forgettable, but in this case, for the upcoming Dark Visions, he is your go-to unit. Because one of the 3 elements that is allowed for the final boss of the next Dark Vision is light. Serge is very good in that regard. And if you are chasing for top 10 to top 50 Dark Vision ranks, you gotta pull, because Serge is probably going to be on that party. He's really good in that regard. Otherwise, super easy skip. If you don't care about ranking, if you are definitely good with your, say, top 100, top 500, top 1k even, you don't need them at all. It's just a waste of lapis. You will certainly get this through other compositions. It's just that if you chase top 10 to 50, you really do want Serge. You do want that vision card. We've talked about the hard-hitting Sage one. But just to give you an idea of why Serge, or why I'm saying this, it's pretty much the same case as it was with Balthier. Balthier was good for just one single Dark Visions. I know people hyped up Balthier so much, he'd be so good for so many months, and then what happened, he was good for one Dark Visions and never showed up ever again. The same applies to Serge. It's what pretty much most JP units are sadly destined to be. They are made for one specific Dark Visions and then instantly forgotten. Same happened to Roos and Nailika. Same happened to Cog, even though he didn't even have his own moment, because light was always a bad element until Tsukiko happened. So yeah, Serge 2 is good for one Dark Visions and will never ever see play again outside of that, which is tragic, but that's your average JP unit. And that is it for today. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the Saturday evening, morning, afternoon. Let me again know in the comments if the audio quality has improved over the last few videos, and if you're fine with some minor background noises, especially when I'm touching my hoodie here, or touching my Coca-Cola, and you probably can't even hear all of the ice when it's moving inside. So I hope it didn't bother you. But yeah, we'll see. Let me know in the comments, and have a wonderful Saturday. See you all most likely next Thursday. Bye bye.